Hey, all, and thank you so much for joining me this week on the Mike Muldoon podcast. I am your host, Mike Muldoon. Today, I want to talk about narcissism. For those who don't know, I didn't know this, narcissism was actually named after the Greek mythological figure Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. Thank you to my wife, Emmeline, for sharing that tidbit of history with me. You truly are an academic. I appreciate that. So obviously, narcissism has been around for a long while, and it's interesting because obviously with the rise of social media, it has given a platform to narcissists around the world to engage in exhibitionist and attention-seeking and self-promoting behaviors. So here's the thing. If you're a narcissist, I doubt you'll see what I'm talking about and wonder, what the heck is this guy speaking about? This is ridiculous. But if not, there's a pretty good chance you've seen it in others. And my advice, have some compassion, but be aware and keep your distance if you can. Because in the case of a narcissistic personality, there's really nothing beautiful about it. Narcissism is, often characterized by an excessive preoccupation with oneself, an inflated self-importance, a constant need for admiration and validation from others, along with this tremendous lack of empathy for others. I mean, it's one thing to be obsessed with yourself. It's another to not give a damn about the other people around you in the process. See, the thing is, one of the things about narcissism is that some people equate it to having confidence. I'm just so confident. Yeah, I'm so confident. The thing is, most confident people don't have to tell people they're confident, right? You've been around confident people. You see it. They just move a certain way. They are a certain way. They act a certain way. They're just confident. And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with having some self-confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. It's normal and healthy to have confidence in oneself, to feel good about yourself. But narcissism is on a whole different level because it becomes a challenge, because when you have narcissistic behavior, it significantly can impair a person's ability to function in relationships and work relationships and other areas of their lives, because they have this exaggerated sense of their own abilities and achievements. Narcissists, they believe they're unique or special, and they expect others to recognize and admire their superiority. I mean, even in the face of being nothing short of just being ordinary. Narcissists have this grandiose self-image and constantly seek attention, praise, and validation. They feel entitled and they feel like they deserve special treatment and privileges. Now, here's the thing. If all narcissists kept to themselves, there would be nothing to be concerned about. But the dangers of being around someone like this is that they're more than willing to exploit others to fulfill their own needs and manipulate situations to maintain their self-perceived superiority. And again, when it comes to empathizing with others, they just can't, and they'll disregard feelings of others and everybody else around them. So let's just take a moment here to acknowledge none of this is an attractive quality except, to the narcissists themselves. So why have compassion? Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, for most narcissists, they didn't really choose to be a narcissist. They didn't wake up one day and they were like, you know what? I think I'll just be a narcissist today. That's what I'm going to work on. The development of a narcissistic personality disorder, it's basically believed to just stem from a bunch of combinations of different things like genetic, environmental, and psychological factors. While the exact cause are not really fully understood, how this narcissistic behavior develops in a human being, there are some potential factors that could contribute to the development of a narcissistic personality. Now, it should be noted that I don't have a lot of experience in this behavior. I don't really study this behavior. I don't really try to spend a lot of time around this behavior. So a lot of what I'm about to share with you today on this behavior is kind of doing my own research of late. I've often said in my podcast, I'm not a guy who proclaims to know everything. Now, the thing is, I've been around enough narcissists in my life between various industries I've worked in to know that when I'm around it, I don't want to be around it. It's just a personality I really don't have a lot of interest in studying. And it's a type of person I really don't have an interest in being around. But anyway, so in my research on narcissism, there's a handful of factors that can play a role in the development of one. And, they are genetic and biological factors, parental and environmental factors, cultural and psychological factors. But then again, let's be honest, all of these listed are where any of our personality issues were most likely formed. So as far as a genetic component on all this, there is some argument that says that it actually can be an inherited trait. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty certain that out of all the genetic components one might want to inherit, this is pretty deep on the list. I mean, geez, I'm just glad I got witty if that was actually a genetic trait that I inherited from family. But there is some reason to believe that a family history of narcissism could lead to being passed on. I mean, there's been studies that have found links between narcissism and certain brain structures and neurochemical imbalances. And although from what I gather, though, I mean, again, doing some of the research in this, it says that there's a lot of research that still needs to be, studied in this area. So I'm not exactly putting all of my faith behind that one, though. Again, I can see it being the developmental one. But this is the one that I really think where we see a lot of it developed, and which would be parental influence, because as most of us, and the way we develop in terms of our personality is often influenced by, our younger years, and a lot of it is by parenting in our early childhood. So children who are constantly praised and admired excessively by their parents without receiving some sort of balanced feedback. If you're always told you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're going to have this inflated sense of self-importance. Though it's interesting because there's also studies that say that children who experience neglect or abuse or, some sort of the complete opposite of the spectrum can develop narcissistic traits, as a defense mechanism to protect their fragile self-esteem. Now, cultural and societal factors contribute as well. I mean, there are some cultures, and I won't name them, but, if you think about it, there's a few out there where that really emphasize individualism, right? A competition, the pursuit of success. Narcissistic behaviors may be more prevalent and even rewarded in certain societies. But to be honest with you, the ones that I've come across, the people that, because again, I am someone who does study a lot of human nature. I do pay attention to people. It's kind of my thing. I've done a lot of work on understanding human behavior. The one that I tend to see the most in narcissists that I've crossed my path are individuals with low self-esteem or feelings of, insecurity, who basically have adopted narcissistic behaviors as a way to compensate for their perceived deficiencies. They're using this sort of inflated self-image as a defense mechanism to, mask their deep-seated feelings of shame or even, vulnerability. And I think, for me, that's kind of any of them. And, I worked in the entertainment business for a long time and I've been around quite a few people in different industries. And to me, I that's where I see a lot of it. To me, a lot of the narcissistic behaviors that I've seen seem to be developed out of insecurity and low self-esteem. But look, it doesn't make a difference how a narcissist got there. All right. But like all disorders, they're multifaceted. There's a comprehensive understanding of narcissism. Obviously, there's going to be, a lot of various factors to contribute to its manifestation in someone. Not every narcissist is going to be the same. The severity of one narcissist to another is not going to be the same. Anyway, I'm not trying to label it all in one area. But the one thing and the one key that seems to be very persistent in a narcissistic personality is, a behavior that just revolves around self-centeredness, an excessive need for admiration, a look at me, look at me, look at me, and a complete lack of empathy for anybody else around them. Can you think of anyone yet? Have you been around anyone yet? So now you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's, and maybe you've even seen it. Maybe I'm not even telling you something that you're not aware of. Maybe you see it, you know it, you're familiar with. But now what? What do you do? Or what about if it just kind of smacked you in the head right now? Oh my gosh, that's blank. Well, once you acknowledge it, dealing with a narcissist can be challenging, but there are things that can be done. And again, like I said, we got to have compassion because on one side of the coin here, we are dealing with somebody who's dealing with an actual disorder. But on the other hand, it's not something that you should have to deal with yourself. So if you're finding yourself in a situation or being, around somebody with a, narcissistic personality disorder, then I got to be honest with you, one of the first things you can do to really help yourself out, especially if you've been struggling with this person, is to is to limit contact. Like if you don't need to be around them, then don't. Why expose yourself to this toxic behavior if you don't have to? But then again, maybe you can't. If you need to be around them, say it's a family member, a colleague, well, then it's time to start setting boundaries. See, that's the thing about narcissists, right? They're going to keep pushing those boundaries. They're going to keep pushing those boundaries. And dealing with the narcissist can be challenging. But the thing is, if you can work to set boundaries, let them know what behavior is acceptable and what is not, and make sure to keep that boundary, then you're going to be able to exist better with them. Now, here's the thing about narcissists. They want to do everything their way, right? They're in control. They're important. They're this. They make the rules. So here's the thing. If you start setting a boundary, there's a pretty good chance that this is going to cause some friction. And they're going to try to push you and violate you and instigate you. Why? Because they're in charge. I'm the important person. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am, what I am? Which leads me to the next step here. If you find yourself in this type of behavior with somebody, you can't engage. Don't engage in arguments. See, the thing about narcissists, they thrive on conflict and attention. Avoid getting drawn into arguments or just trying to prove them wrong. It's not going to happen. They're narcissists. Of course they're right. And if you feel yourself getting drawn into one of these, you got to stay calm. You got to maintain composure. You got to focus on your own well-being. It's not a fight worth having. It's not even a fight you're going to win, because they'll do anything to preserve who they think they are in their mind. And they are the important one. It's a me, me, me. None of it has to do with you. And if you find yourself in that situation, you find yourself with that, don't take it personally. Because again, here comes the compassion. First off, their behavior is not a reflection of your worth or value as a person. Most narcissists are only going to project their own insecurities onto others, and then they're going to engage in this sort of manipulation to boost their own self-esteem. Remind yourself that their actions are just a reflection of their own issues. They're not yours. So stay calm. Don't take it personally. Remember, this is a disorder. This is a challenge. They can't see it. If you have contact with a narcissist, instead of getting upset, just don't get sucked in. If anything, again, just show some silent empathy. No, it's not you, it's them. All narcissistic personality disorder is an actual disorder. Remember that. This is a challenge that they're dealing with. Take the high road, find empathy. But if you can, limit your exposure, because your needs and what is important to you in keeping yourself safe is the important thing. See, most narcissists will make your needs about them, but you need to take care of your needs. Okay. So the thing is, it's never fun being, around a narcissist. And the sad part about this behavior is that, as life goes on, it often leads to where most narcissists, they just end up alone because they're incapable of enjoying some sort of healthy relationships. And eventually they realize that they can no longer protect their self-worth. I mean, that image they've been presenting to the world no longer holds true. And they find themselves sad and alone. So, it's a heavy one, huh? I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because of just social media, and you see a lot of this, a lot of this. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I like, with social media, I like looking at people when they're doing really cool things, and I don't judge, but there's a little bit where you see an excess. You're like, oh gosh, this is, there's a little bit more going on here than just, hey, look at this me. It's really, look at me. I'm all important. Stop your whole life. And, and it's tough. And I guess, for somebody like me, I like I said, I don't spend a lot of time around this behavior, but I can recognize it and I know how to handle it and how to deal with it. I like to say that I am somebody who is, I manage irrational behaviors pretty well. I should actually put that as a business card. What do you do for a living? I'm an irrational behavior manager. But anyway, I just want to say thanks again for joining me on today's episode. If you have any questions, concerns, if you find yourself right now in a situation where you're dealing with somebody who might have narcissistic personality disorder, or you don't know how you can, some other techniques or something that you can sort of, help distance yourself or, make your life a little bit easier, feel free to contact me. You can always go to my website, MikeMuldoonLC.com. You can always find me on Instagram at MikeMuldoonLC. Other than that, I look forward to your questions. I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your emails. You can always reach out to me there. I look forward to hearing from you. I love hearing from you. And as always, going to the weekend, I got nothing but love for you.